Greetings, greetings. This is Joe Green, and good to be back with you again. I want to share some thoughts with you. I've been away for a little bit. It's been over a week and a half that I have done a stream, and went to Alaska. Had a wonderful time, and beautiful, beautiful. One of the most beautiful states I've ever seen in my life. I've been to a lot of them. I've been to almost all the states in the United States, including Hawaii, and I would have to put Alaska up at the top. Now, of course, I was there at a good time of the year because in June, um, the weather is great. So we had weather in the 80s and the 90s, or in the 80s, and it was very pleasant, very sunny. We didn't get any rain or anything, so God really looked on us favorably while we were there. But I want to share a couple of things. One of the things that's been in the news, and everything that I bring to you, I bring it from a biblical, historical, and cultural perspective. And so hopefully you get entertained, hopefully you learn a lot, and also hopefully you get some deeper insights as to what is happening around the world. And because I believe that it is important for us to know what is happening around us, because there is things are being put in front of us for a reason, and they can either control us, enrich us, or empower us. And it all depends on what it is that we do with what we see in front of us and how we process the information. And so the first thing I want to talk about is I'm going to get to the JJ Redick situation, but I came across this interview, and this is all going to tie in together. So bear with me, please. Came across this Inc. magazine, April 28th, 2023 article, and I also saw the interview between Elon Musk and Bill Maher. And so part of the interview, excuse me. It was a pretty good interview between the two, but there was one part where Bill Maher kind of pushed back and challenged Elon Musk. And I think, personally, a lot of these interviewers nowadays, they try to get gotcha moments, or they try to what they call ambush people. Ambush journalism is very popular. So they'll get you on the show, try to catch you up in your words and try to get a zinger or a gotcha moment so it could go viral. But the interview itself was pretty mild interview, but there was one part where there was a little pushback from Bill Maher. And so here's from the article, and I'm going to talk about my assessment on what I saw. It says the closest Maher got to challenging Musk on anything was a brief exchange about, of all things, water. It turns out that it might have been the most insightful part of the entire interview in terms of understanding the way Musk thinks, and more important, why it's a problem. Now, I need you to understand, when I read this and I read the article, this person by the name of Jason Aiton. He's, I guess it's an opinion column that he did, editorial or whatever you want to call it. And he's saying that this is problematic. Now, the reason I want to share this, I'm going to share why I believe that this person is saying this, but you have to recognize that mainstream media, the large media outlets, most of them are owned by the same people, basically. And so they have an agenda that they're pushing. And so usually they'll all agree, in essence, in most of the events that we're talking about. So whenever you come across something, especially if it's a big news story, the majority of the major media sites, whether it's a magazine, whether it's a website, whether it's a video blog or television itself, they usually have the same talking points. Which is problematic in itself. But this is why this person said it's a problem. So I'm going to read a little bit of the interview, right? This is Elon Musk and Bill Maher. Elon Musk says, I think we should be cautious about some of the civilizational decline. We have plummeting birth rates. That's what Musk says. He's saying we have to be cautious about the fact that we have plummeting birth rates. And Bill Maher says, and also plummeting resources. Musk says the resources will be fine. And Maher says, but they're not fine now. Musk says, I'm not suggesting complacency. We do not want to move to a sustainable energy economy as quickly as possible, but we're not in any danger of resource collapse. Bill Maher said, but lots of people don't have enough food or water. We will run out of water. They're running out of sand. Elon Musk says over 70% water by surface area. He's talking about the world is covered with water. Over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. And just to put it in perspective, I was in Alaska, and it is so much water there. And some of the lakes that were there, our tour guides told us some of these lakes are 600 feet deep. And so that's a lot of water. It was water all over the place. So Elon Musk says over 70% water by surface area. Bill Maher says you can't drink that. Musk says desalinization is absurdly cheap. When we do it, Maher says, and Elon Musk says it is done. There's a lot of desalinization done. We're not going to run out of water. I want to be clear. And so just for so you know, desalinization, most water you can't drink salt water because it has high salt content and other things. So desalinization is a process that goes through so you can make water. All water is that a human being can consume. Like for instance, if you ever saw the movie, I think it's called The Life of Pi or something. They were in the middle of the ocean. There's water all over the place, and you have this thirst, this crazy thirst, but they can't drink the water because it'll make you sick. So they have this process called desalinization that helps to process the water in a way that you can drink it. So Elon Musk is saying that that is very absurdly cheap in order to be able to do that. So what his point is that if we do that, we'll never run out of water because we have so much water all over the earth. Now, this is what the author, Jason Adam, then he chimes in. He says, yes, the surface of the earth is mostly covered in water, but that isn't the same thing as having drinkable water coming out of your tap. More than 2 million people in the United States alone do not have regular access to clean water. Now, he's making a reference to certain places around the country. Like, for instance, I know in Flint, Michigan, their water supply, you couldn't drink tap water, or, and other places where the water is contaminated. But, in America, there is access to water. You may have to, be able to obtain it or get it. You go to the grocery store, you have tons of water. You go into every major city, you can drink the tap water right out of the tap. So there's access to water all over. There may be people in certain areas that it's a challenge, but that challenge is not insurmountable. You can still get to water. But the reason that I wanted to share that is because what Bill Maher is demonstrating is a philosophy held by what's known as the hegemony. And what is that? So sometimes we talk about the ruling elite, the globalist elite, and those type of people that you hear me talk about. Now, there's a certain philosophy that they hold to. And I'm not telling you something I'm making up or whatever. I'm talking about the philosophy that many of them hold to, and some of the great philosophers and hold to this concept called hegemony. And what is hegemony? A lot of the things that we kind of give credit to white supremacy is not white supremacy, but it is a elite class of people that believe that they are superior to the rest of civilization, and therefore that the resources of the world belongs to them. And so even if you look in Europe during the during the time where you had kings and you had the feudal system, you only had a certain amount of people on the top, the royals, the aristocrats. Those are the ones who were in charge, and the life of the rest of the people, even in Europe, was very bad. And so it wasn't about white supremacy, it's about the elite class people. Now, one of the things that happened to kind of fight against this whole concept of hegemony, and I'll read the definition to you, but hegemony is basically there's a group of people or a classification of people that believe that they are superior to the rest of the world. And this goes all the way back to Genesis 3, and that they believe that the resources of the earth belongs to them, that they should have the resources of the earth. And so part of the philosophy is because they believe that the elite class should have the resources of the earth, and because the population of the earth continually grows, that you have to do something because the resources are going to run out. And so these people that don't deserve the resources, you have to do away with them. That's where you get the whole concept of population control. And so I don't know if Elon Musk was intentionally throwing that in there, because he said declining birth rates was one of the first things he mentioned, right? And so the people that are hegemonists or the elite class people, they believe that birth rates should go down and not go up. Right. And so when they talk about the world being overpopulated, you hear them throw terms out like that. The whole climate change initiative or agenda is based on overpopulation and population control. Because if you think about the fact that they say there's too much CO2 in the earth, which is causing the climate of the earth to shift. But you got to realize that human beings are one of the greatest sources of CO2. So as human beings, we breathe in O2, oxygen, and then we breathe out CO2, but the plants take in CO2 and the plants give out O2. So there's an ecosystem of give and take that occurs. But these people believe that the earth is overpopulated, and in order to maintain the resources of the earth, you have to reduce the population. Eugenics with Margaret Sanger and even the Nazis, they were also eugenicists. They believed that there were certain groups of people that you need less of, and there were certain groups of people that you need more of. And so eugenics has a negative and a positive connotation. And so eugenics with Margaret Sanger, she held to that philosophy among other people. And so they believed that they had to come up with a strategy in order to reduce the population of what they called them human weeds, or the defective stock of people, the people that were beneath the ruling elite class people. And Margaret Sanger and others like her believed that blacks were among that group of people that you needed less of. That's why they came up with the whole concept of abortion on demand, to encourage black people to have less babies and reduce their population. So these are just facts. I'm not making them up. I read it in their books. They talk about it all the time. But hegemony is something that's very important for you to understand, because when you understand this elite class of people, then you understand the philosophy that they adhere to, and they promote certain ideas of the population of the earth being too high. You got to reduce the population of the earth. They give you the idea that the resources of the earth are running out, and those type of things. Now, you can go in certain climates in certain places. You can go into a desert. They lack water, but that's always been the case, right? But there are places that have an abundance of water, and you may have to go through the process of desalination or whatever the case may be in order to make that water able to be consumed. So now, how does this tie into JJ Redick and LeBron James? And I want to tell you about it. So there's an article, and most of you probably know of, and I was a Laker fan for a long time. I stopped watching them a while ago, and I've really tuned down on sports, because if you understand the concept or the philosophy behind the elite class, one of the ways that they distract the masses is through entertainment. And so this goes all the way back to Genesis 11 with Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. Like I said, this whole elite class or hegemony class people, they go back to Genesis chapter 3. And if you looked at some of my videos, I go into detail about that. But what I need you to understand is that entertainment is given as a distraction for the masses. It's to basically drug the masses to where they're not looking at other issues. They're so focused on being entertained. That's why if you look on your cable television station, now if you have regular cable, you might have 6,000 different channels, and I'm maybe exaggerating, maybe 300 or 400 channels, but you have all these extra channels, all these free movies, all this stuff that's so easily given to you. And it's meant to distract you from really paying attention to some of the more important issues that's going on in the world around you. But in this article talks about, this is from CNN Sports, new Lakers coach JJ Redick, who has no prior coaching experience, says his time as a player, analyst, and podcaster has him prepared to be the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, for most of you who are sports fans, you know that's pretty ridiculous. Being the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers has been traditionally probably one of the top jobs in professional sports. Being a coach of the Lakers, being a coach of the Yankees, maybe being coach of the Cowboys or the Patriots. All these are jobs that are considered top of the food chain, because the Lakers are one of two-story franchises. There's more than two, but if you think about the Lakers and the Celtics, these are two of the traditionally they have the two most amounts of championships in the NBA. So in Los Angeles, of course, prime time, you look at the Laker game, you got some of the highest of the high celebrities sitting courtside at the Laker game. So being a coach of the Lakers is considered the top of the food chain for professional sports. So why is it that this JJ Redick, who has no coaching experience at all on any level, now has gotten the job of the Lakers head coach? Now, of course, and like I said, he admits this. He says he has no prior coaching experience, but his time as a player, an analyst, and a podcaster has him prepared for this. Now, why is the podcaster part important? Because it should be noted that LeBron James and JJ Redick recently started a podcast a little while back. And so many people believe that was LeBron James prepping to promote the idea that JJ Redick is a basketball savant, he's a genius, and that he should be the coach of the Lakers. Many people have thought that was the case, and we see that come to pass, right? So there must be some truth to it. And, you know, for you to say, I don't have any coaching experience, but I was a player and a podcaster and an analyst, so that makes me a good coach, really, that wouldn't fly in any other situation. But with this, somehow it flies. Now, here's part of what I want to get to. When I talk about the hegemony, the ruling class, and things like that, it's very clear that LeBron James holds a huge amount of weight in the NBA. So if you think about the NBA, they always have a player who is considered the face of the NBA. So when Michael Jordan, well, let's go back a little bit further. When Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were the top two, players in the league, they were the face of the NBA. And then Michael Jordan came in and took over, and then he became the face of the NBA for several years. And now most people consider LeBron, or have considered him, the face of the NBA for some time. And he holds an exorbitant amount of weight in the NBA, to the fact where he can allow the Lakers organization, and Jeannie Buss, I saw her sitting by LeBron once, and she was having a conversation. You could kind of read her lips, and she says, "I'll do whatever it takes to keep you here," or basically, and I'm paraphrasing. And so he's pulled some leverage. It got JJ Redick, his friend, to be the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And now here's another piece that many people don't know. I talked about him being the face of the NBA and holding a lot of weight. LeBron James is also a member of what's known as the Boule, the Black Boule. And I'll talk about that in a second. But to prove that he is the member of the Boule, and some of you know who this is, and let me say for the record, I know people that are in these organizations. A lot of them aren't part of this overall conspiracy. But when you look at the top of the top, the ruling elite class people, the people that are at the very top, these are people that have a disproportionate amount of influence and over the culture as a whole, right? So LeBron is definitely a Boule member. If you ever Google his tattoo, he has a tattoo of a griffin that covers almost his complete chest, and the griffin is the symbol for the Boule. And which are gatekeepers. Basically, he's a gatekeeper. He's a shot caller, and a lot of what he says and does moves the needle forward in the discussions. Now, here's the difference. As I mentioned before, LeBron James was the face of the NBA. A few years prior to that, you had Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the face of the NBA. Now, here's the problem that they had with Michael Jordan. Now, they couldn't deny his greatness and his dominance on the basketball court and winning all these titles. But one of the main differences between LeBron James and Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan refused to get political or to speak to social justice issues. He refused to do that. He didn't want to be political because he said, Democrats and Republicans buy my sneakers. He didn't. He wouldn't chime into social justice issues, even though behind the scenes, I've heard a lot of stories of his philanthropic endeavors. Like, for instance, Spike Lee talked about how when he made the movie Malcolm X, he didn't have any money. Michael Jordan gave him a huge amount of money. I think it was probably $1 million or so, and I'm just speculating. I don't know the exact amount, in order to make the movie. And so behind the scenes, he's done a lot of things, even though in front of the scenes, he hasn't been outspoken towards certain issues. And the reason why that's critical is because what the ruling elite class does now and has done is that they use celebrities, especially in our community, to be the spokesperson to promote agendas. And so when you look into entertainment, when you look in athletics, and music, they use our entertainers to be the spokespeople on the issues that promote their agenda. And so you have to be very leery whenever they are promoting an agenda. They are advancing a cause, and usually they're being told to. People have used the word puppets for people like that, right? Let me give you an example. So, LeBron James came up with this dream school, and everybody patted him on the back. He's so phenomenal and terrific. He has this school. It's called the Dream School. It's primarily for minorities. And they did a study, I think it was either this year or last year, where almost all of the children in the school are failing. They're below grade point level in reading and math. So it's a disaster. It's not promoting the concepts that he promoted openly. So everybody said, oh, this is going to be outstanding, excellence, all these resources. But it was really just promoting him as the great guy, as opposed to actually addressing the educational needs of these minority children. And so now they're worse off because you gave them even more hope. And that hope is now being squashed because it didn't do anything. It didn't do what they had claimed it was going to do. They had this big hoopla about it, put his picture all over the school, and it's a failure. And we have to do better for our children, right? We can't afford to keep allowing our kids to fail. If you're going to do it, do it. If not, just keep your mouth shut, in my estimation. Now, this is nothing new, right? Having these type of celebrities, boule, gatekeepers in the forefront, being the voice of certain issues, and like I said, promoting agendas. And I've been studying, I'm a student of history. So a lot of the stuff I say, people will say, oh, you're just coming up with that. But I'm a student of history. And when I say the things I say, a lot of the stuff are things that have been established decades ago. For instance, this whole concept of being leery of these athletes and these entertainers and promoters doing things that, these athletes, entertainers, and promoters being on the limelight, pushing on the forefront, pushing an agenda. So in 1963, Malcolm X agreed, but argued that the problem was rooted in what it took to become a black leader in a racist country. This is Malcolm X. And the implications of what one's connection to a racist system does to one's political views and theory of social change. So back during the time of Malcolm X, you still had a Jim Crow. They were pushing for the civil rights bill to move forward. There was still systemic racism in the country at that time. And so Malcolm X says he's leery of those people who are promoted to be black leaders. He says, if the country is so racist, how do these people get promoted to the forefront? And his suspicion was that they were being promoted because they weren't actually going to help the issues of the community, but they were pushing the agenda of those who were in charge. Here's what Malcolm X says. It says, the implications of what one's connection to a racist system does to one's political views and theories of social change. White liberals were at fault, Malcolm argued. White liberals were at fault, Malcolm argued. It was they who endorsed, sanctioned, subsidized, and supported these black leaders, whom he called puppets. He specifically mentioned the actress Lena Horne, this is back in the 60s, and comedian Dick Gregory, arguing that white liberals placed black celebrities as leaders in front of the American public and claimed that their interests represented those of all black people. I want to read this again. This is what Malcolm X said in 1963, and I think this applies to our conversation here. It says, Malcolm X argued that white liberals placed black celebrities as leaders in front of the American public and claimed that their interests represented those of all black people. Now, this is happening today. I won't go into detail today, but look at some of my other videos. I go into detail about it. Malcolm X criticized the idea of black celebrity as a leadership class that could be trusted with leading social transformation. For Malcolm, black celebrities who had proximity to capital, fame, and fortune could not be aligned or reconciled with the black masses. He framed them as a group separate from the people that they claim to represent. I'm gonna read that one more time, and then I'm gonna leave with my final thought. He criticized, this is Malcolm X, the idea of black celebrity as a leadership class that could be trusted with leading social transformation. For Malcolm, black celebrities who had proximity to capital, fame, and fortune could not be aligned or reconciled with the black masses. He framed them as a group separate from the people they claim to represent. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, LeBron James, for one, he's a billionaire. He has huge amounts of wealth and property. One of his houses I know is in Beverly Hills, and it's probably worth 10, 20, 30 million dollars. It's a gated community, a gate around his house. He has other properties. He travels the world, does whatever he wants to do. And so how can he really address the issues of those who are struggling to pay rent or buy bread and groceries and all this other stuff, right? But see, he promotes the idea that I'm one of you, I'm with you, I understand your struggle. And LeBron, let's be honest, hasn't struggled since he was a teenager. From the time they recognized him as a great basketball player, he's lived a charmed life. Now, I'm not knocking him because that's his gift and he's to use it for his benefit, right? And that's what a free market capitalistic society does. But he still gives the idea that things are so terrible. I heard him even say once, it's a shame that even me, when I leave my house, it's like we're being hunted down every single day. Now, let's be honest. LeBron James is not fearing for his life when he leaves his house. I'm sure he has security around him. The average person couldn't just walk up to him and talk to him other than if you go to the game or if you go somewhere and he allows you to. But see, he keeps promoting the idea that things are so terrible and so hard and so stacked against them that the people with the lower class, the middle and lower middle class and the poverty class, they're going to see that they're going to think that there's no hope. And so it just perpetuates this idea of hopelessness, of this insurmountable monkey on our back that we'll never be able to overcome. And it can really be detrimental to those who have an opportunity to achieve something great in America. Because I still believe that this is the land of opportunity. There's struggles, there's challenges you may have to face. But if you work hard enough, make the right decisions, there's a very good chance that you will elevate yourself to something better than you are. This has been Joe Green. And again, thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts. I would ask you to please like, subscribe, and share my channel and my videos if they bring some benefit to you. And even if you disagree, make it a point of discussion with you and your colleagues. And, you know, you can say, this is why I don't think he's telling the truth, or what he's saying is right. So, but anyway, good dialogue and good conversations is important for emotional and spiritual growth. And so I just bless each and every one of you. I love you. Shalom, shalom.